Hello friends, and welcome to Escaping the Mouse with your host, me, Breck Roll. Alright, so if you watched our last video, you know we've prepped the final part of the living room for painting and we got everything ready to go. And so today we are going to begin painting. Let's get going. So just as a little review, we've pulled everything off of these walls here. We're going to basically paint from this point on all the way around. I patched up the holes on the wall and got those all set to go. And basically the floor is all prepped, so we're not going to get any paint on that. I've removed the blades from the fan and covered it up with plastic so we don't get anything there. I've also removed the registers from the air conditioning vents. I think since they're a little bit kind of dingy looking, I think I'm going to go over them with some white spray paint to make them look nice. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to paint the ceiling, because I like to work from the top down. That way you don't get any splatters on the wall once you get the wall painted. So let's start with the white on the ceiling. We also got a little storm front blowing in an hour or so, so perhaps we'll get a little rain footage too. Alright, you really can't tell a whole lot of difference here between the ceiling before and after, because you know it was white before and it's white after. The only real difference is it's got a little bit more of a glossy coat on it, and that's sort of what I want. I've always kind of liked having a glossy coat on the ceiling, because then it reflects a little light down and it gets a little bit more light down onto the ground. So we got that done. I've actually reconnected the fan blades now, because when you do that, that keeps the air moving and it kind of helps you know, dry the paint quicker. But I think the ceiling looks good. We're done with that. I'm probably only going to do one coat on that. I only did one coat over here also, because you know it was already white. I'm not having to worry about any bleed through on that. So the next thing we're going to do now is we are going to do the walls here. So yeah, that's the next step. Alright, we got one coat up. I'm going to let this dry a little bit, and then we're going to put a second coat on. I always do a second coat when I'm going over another color, and like I said, I was going over the gray that was here before, and so as you can see there's a little bit of a line right here, and we'll get that when we go over it the second time. And then I'll go along the edges there and make sure, you know, we'll do that with a brush, go all the way around the corners here, just to make sure that everything looks good, because you can't really get right up to the corners with the roller. So we'll go over and hit that with a brush later on, and then when that dries, hopefully later on today, we'll put the dark blue on here and get that all wrapped around, both on top and on bottom here. In the meantime, it's actually been raining for a little while, for probably about 2 hours now. So I'm going to let you watch a little bit of a rain video while the paint dries. Enjoy. Okay, I finished the second coat. I also went around the edges with a brush just to make sure we got all the way up to the edges a little bit. We're going to give it a little bit of time to dry right now. One of the things I do notice is it looks a little streaky down here, but experience tells me that's just because there's areas that are a little bit more wet than other areas. As it dries, it'll kind of fade to a nice uniform color like it is everywhere else here. So we're going to give this a little bit of time to dry, and then we ought to be able to get up here and do the trim today. So, because it's still kind of early enough in the afternoon, it's only about 2 o'clock. So we'll give it about an hour to dry. We'll go do the trim, and then we should be able to be done for the night. Oh, and for those of you who are keeping score, that little rainstorm dropped about 1.25 inches on us. Very nice. All right, it's been a couple of hours since I finished the blue on the walls, and I was hoping at this point I could kind of mask it off and start preparing to paint the dark blue. But it's really humid today, and the paint has taken a long time to dry, and the masking tape just wasn't sticking. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to another phase of this project, and we'll probably catch up with the trim work tomorrow. What I do want to do, I've had a couple hooks that I've been kind of running the speaker wire from the front of the house back to the surround speakers over here. And I want to do something a little permanent. That was tacky, but it was just something that I was doing temporarily until I was ready to come up with another idea. And I think what I want to do is I've successfully used these kind of plastic conduits in the past for running electrical wire. And I think I want to run a plastic conduit all the way along this wall here, along this beam here on the back side, to bring the wire over to the surround speakers. So I think what I'm going to do, I got a little bit of that left over from before, but I think I'm going to go over to Home Depot and pick up some more of that, and we're going to try and get that all wrapped up today. So I think that's the next step. Let's go to Home Depot and get some plastic conduit. All right, I'm back from Home Depot, and I've actually routed the wire for the surround speakers now underneath this conduit here stuff. The beauty of this is at some point I'll paint that and it'll blend in with the wall really well. And basically it goes up behind the speaker, runs on the underside of this beam here all the way across, and then it'll come down here. And I am not going to do this part yet because I want to get everything up on the wall first before I do that. But I'll run it down here. It'll go behind the speaker that'll hang here, and then over and down to the tuner, which will be right here. So I think ultimately that's going to be a lot neater than what I had. I just had basically, you know, the wire hanging there, and it looked ugly, and I knew I had to do something with it, but it took me a while to figure out exactly what I wanted to do. I had kind of a picture in my head of what I wanted to do. I actually wanted to have it go up and go on the right side of this beam and go straight across. But unfortunately, they have these little junction pieces that connect different pieces, different types of, or different conduits together, but they only have certain kinds. They'll have one that'll come down this way, they'll have one that'll make a right turn, they'll have one that's an outside turn, but they don't have one that'll go from there straight down. So this was kind of something I had to kind of settle for, and it isn't perfect because if you see there, I actually had to bring the wire outside of the conduit to go over the fan, but you know, no one's gonna really see that. It's gonna be over their head. So I think this is probably a good option, and I think probably that's all that I have for today. So come back tomorrow. Hopefully this paint will be dry enough and we can put the trim up. And once I get the trim up and done, then we'll be able to start reattaching everything and putting everything back together and get this room back to being functional again. So thank you as always for watching, and I will see you next time on Escaping the Mouse. Good night.